Welcome to the New Colorado Conglomerate education page. We are excited for you to join our airsoft community, and we are thrilled that you are already taking significant steps in your journey to becoming an asset to the New Colorado Conglomerate. We thank you for your service. Today, we are diving into Modules 1 and Module 2 of the New Colorado Conglomerate Handbook. In Module 1, we will discuss the basic combat formations. And in Module 2, we will discuss basic safety requirements that the 4 fundamental rules of gun safety does not cover. Get your pen and paper ready. Let's dive into our first module. Alright boys, let's get into it. So we are going to discuss the 3 most critical formations that we have, and then we are going to dive into a couple of bonus formations, and these will just be good for you to have in the back of your mind. Okay, this first one is called the vertical column. This is as simple as it gets. We are basically ducks in the row playing follow the leader. This is just like elementary school. So what is the vertical column good for? Well, it is great for avoiding landmines. Landmines are the worst. They are hidden, they are sneaky, they will always get you. If we do know that a specific path of travel is safe, let's take it. However, there's going to be a big trade-off, and that is we run to the risk of running into a machine gunner or an ambush. A machine gunner will completely mow us down, and that is not a good thing for obvious reasons. There are better formations that we can utilize to avoid small arms fire and potential ambushes. But we will use a vertical column if there is only one path of travel. And that typically happens if we are in a mountainous area or we're on a road and we can't leave the road for whatever reason. One more thing to note about the vertical column is that if you look closer, our right and our left sides are very covered, but our front and our rear sides are more exposed to ambushes and surprise attacks. Alright, moving on to the staggered column. This is one of my personal favorites. When we are in the staggered column formation, we are much harder to get hit by artillery or small arms fire. Let me just put this artillery man right here. In this formation, we have a lot more protection in both the front and on the rear side. This helps us to keep our sectors of fire covered. But on the downside, we have to face the fact there will most likely be airsoft landmines scattered all over the place, so we may be a little bit more likely to hit one of those. This is the online formation. We don't typically move forward in this formation, but we will use this formation when we know where exactly the enemy is so we can face them with our front side. When we face them directly, this helps us establish fire superiority. Now, what does fire superiority mean? That means we can allocate the most guns, or airsoft guns, towards the enemy as possible. This helps us to shoot more BBs, which in turn allows us to overwhelm the enemy. And keep in mind, our front and our rear side are going to be the most protected in this formation, but not our sides. That's where we are going to be the most vulnerable. So if we do know David Hogg and his goons are moving, we need to adjust. We need to adapt to that. We will have to communicate that movement, and we will have to shift our fire right as you see here. We're moving. We want to be on line facing the enemy to establish fire superiority. Let's move on to the arrow formation. And the biggest question is, when do we ever use the arrow formation? And the answer to that is simple. When we are crossing an open field and there is not a lot of cover around. This allows us to easily pivot from one side to another while simultaneously evading both artillery and small arms fire. However, the biggest downside to this formation is going to be mines or traps set by the enemy. Because we are so spread out and we have multiple lines of travel, we are definitely likely to get hit, so we will lose a Morgan Freeman or two in this formation. What is neat about the arrow formation is that it allows us to pivot very quickly. So if we are being flanked from the rear side, we can easily move our point man, Morgan Freeman, to the rear and establish a new line of fire. Our final formation is the diamond formation. This can be considered a great compromise when advancing in an open field. People tend to love this formation for a lot of reasons, mostly because we have all sides of coverage. So when the Taliban comes either on our front side, or this side, or even this side, we are covered. We don't even have to pivot, even though we should. We want to be online, remember that. But yes, this is a great option in many scenarios, especially when we're crossing an open field. This formation looks worse than it actually is. But hear me out, let me explain. You have now completed Module 1 in the new Colorado Conglomerate education page.
The raccoon's playing with the meth pipe, y'all. Tweaking a little critter, just having a ball. Mama saying, Chewy, put that down. But he puffing like a king with a meth head crown.
Let's move on to Module 2. So if you're watching this, you're already familiar with the 4 basic rules of gun safety, so we're not going to cover them because you should already know those by heart. But in the new Colorado Conglomerate, we do have some additional airsoft safety rules that you should 100% follow, because we'll be doing some very serious training that involves both shooting and moving at the same time. So we are going to implement these extra rules so we can stay as safe as we possibly can. Alright, it is time for Module 2. I already gave an introduction, so let's dive into it. Starring Logan Paul, George Washington, and guest starring COVID-19. This is the first rule. We can see here we have both George Washington in behind, and we have Logan Paul in front in a stagger column formation. In this scenario, Logan Paul is taking lots of heavy fire, and he eyes a rock as cover, and he wants to go behind it. In general, we should not put ourselves in front of speeding bullets. It's not a good thing. We shouldn't do it. Even if it's a nice looking rock, we can't. However, if Logan Paul decides to go behind the rock anyways, he is going to implement the call rule. What the call rule means is that he needs permission from George Washington in order to move from that location to a location in front of him. And once Logan Paul gets the okay from George Washington that it is clear to move in front of him, he can go ahead and move. Now keep in mind, let's say Logan Paul does not implement the call rule and does not let you know, George Washington is still going to be liable for every bullet that he shoots, so he will still have to be mindful and aware of his surroundings at all times. Alright, time for rule number 2. This is the rule I call the shoulder tap rule. Ideally, instead of going in front of another shooter, we should be going behind the shooter. And when we do so, we don't have to verbally communicate. We don't need the okay or permission from George Washington to go. We can simply just move. However, when we are moving behind someone, we will implement the shoulder tap rule. This means if I'm moving from someone's right side to left side, in this situation, we're moving from George Washington's right to left. we are going to tap George Washington's left shoulder, indicating, hey, we are moving from right to left. And we can do that without needing to verbally communicate that movement. Alright, time for rule number 3. So I just spelled it out on this slide. But yes, so only the point man may shoot directly forward in a staggered column formation or a similar formation. Even though it may seem safe for George Washington to shoot forward in this picture, let's not do it. It's really easy for Logan Paul to step in front of that line of fire, especially if we're not communicating. This rule is mostly because we are not trained assassins or trained military, so we are going to err on the side of caution. It's rule number 4, my favorite rule. Actually, all of these rules are my favorite, but this is an easy one. Just maintain your sectors of fire, hold to it, don't do anything unpredictable. If you think something may be borderline, if you think something may be safe, let's make some good discretion and not pull that trigger, especially if we have any doubts at all. Alright, time for rule number 5. This one's also an easy one. It is thou shalt not cross streams at 10 yards. Now, what does that mean practically? Let's pay attention to where our battle buddy is and ensuring that our bullets are not getting too close to comfort for him. But honestly, if we're crossing streams at 20 yards, that's okay, not a big deal. Let's just be mindful. Alright, time for rule number 6. So, actually this is just rule number 3, but yeah, you can see here, thou shalt maintain sectors of fire. Let's just do that. We don't really have to be crossing streams unnecessarily, but no big deal if it's past 20 yards. Remember, we're not going to stress. We just want to make sure that we're maintaining sectors of fire as much as possible. We'll just keep that in the back of our minds. Alright, quiz time. We have 2 objects. We have James Murray and the ATF building. What do we do? Yes, that is correct. We will give James Murray the rocket launcher, and that will solve this equation.
Guys had it down to a science, keeping them all off the loser board.
Congratulations, you have successfully completed Modules 1 and Module 2 of the New Colorado Conglomerate Handbook. Have a nice day.